The sheer number of moving parts that comprise even the simplest TV show are absolutely mind-boggling, and so it's little surprise that so many series end up falling short of their huge potential. Inspired by a recent Reddit thread, these 10 TV shows, among some of the most popular and acclaimed of all time, stumbled hard by failing to do justice to a golden opportunity staring them in the face. With that in mind, I'm Adam from What Culture, and here are 10 biggest missed opportunities in TV history. Number 10. Daenerys' botched heel turn, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones' 8th and final season is basically a comedy of errors, an avalanche of storytelling mistakes as showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss attempted to speedrun a full season's worth of story and character work in just 6 episodes. There were many missed opportunities in the show's final stretch, but nothing more egregious than the botched presentation of Daenerys Targaryen's transition into the Mad Queen. On paper, the idea of Dany's heel turn was perfectly fine, but it also needed to be built up and finessed over at least the course of a season, rather than feeling so suddenly thrown into the mix at the end as it did. When Dany burned down King's Landing in the show's penultimate episode, it simply didn't feel earned. Rather, it came off as rushed, with Benioff and Weiss racing to tie up their arc in record time. As character development, it felt inauthentic to Dany up to that point, a fact made even worse by her abrupt death in the series finale. Daenerys becoming a full-blown villain could have been incredible if given sufficient time to marinate, but it was painfully clear that those in charge just wanted to get it done as fast as possible and move on to other projects. Number 9. The scrapped Friends and Seinfeld crossover. There's no denying that Friends and Seinfeld were the sitcoms of the 1990s, and as such, a crossover event which saw each series character appear in the other show would have been absolutely huge. And get this, with both shows airing on NBC, it actually almost happened. When both sitcoms were at their peak of their popularity in the mid to late 90s, the network seriously considered a crossover night where Friends characters would appear in Seinfeld and vice versa, effectively confirming them to exist within the same continuity. But according to former Seinfeld writer Peter Melman, the ambitious and appealing idea was ultimately shot down by Seinfeld creator Larry David himself. David had no interest in the crossover, though Melman apparently almost persuaded him by suggesting they agree to it, only to kill off Ross on their episode, something NBC presumably would have vetoed anyway. All the same, this would have been one of the most legendary TV crossovers of all time, seeing Seinfeld's signature cynicism inject into the broader, more upbeat world of Friends would have been one hell of a sight. Number 8. Not being Quicksilver, WANDAVISION. Jaws were collectively dropped around the world when, at the end of WandaVision's 5th episode, Wanda was greeted by none other than her apparently dead brother, Pietro. The big twist, however, is that he wasn't played by Aaron Taylor Johnson as in Avengers Age of Ultron, but rather Evan Peters, who played Pietro/Quicksilver in Fox's canonically unrelated run of X-Men movies. The reveal seemed to suggest that Fox's X-Men universe was going to be integrated into the MCU somehow, only for the series finale to throw this all away by revealing that Pietro was actually a regular Westview resident called Ralph Boner, who was forced to impersonate Pietro by the villainous Agatha Harkness. Basically, it was a bait and switch which got fans hugely excited, only to leave them massively deflated by the season's end. Considering just how great Peters was in the role of Pietro, teasing him to join the MCU only to throw it away a few episodes later was a colossal miscalculation. Number 7. Killing Shane too early, The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead truly didn't know what it had with its early antagonist Shane Walsh, played with gruff delight by the ever-brilliant Jon Bernthal. Shane was a terrific foil for protagonist Rick, and so his death in Season 2's penultimate episode left many fans hugely disappointed, leaving a giant void of personality and overall screen presence in his wake. While it's fair to say that Shane died much earlier than this in the comics, given that the show has deviated significantly from the source material on numerous occasions, would it have killed the showrunners to keep Shane around for a little bit longer at least? least. The show could have slow bled the increasing tension between Shane and Rick for at least another season before bringing it to the boil. If nothing else, seeing Shane's descent into madness continue for another batch of episodes would have made for compulsive viewing. Given how long tenured some of the series' more notable villains have been, namely Negan, it's a crying shame that Shane got taken off the chessboard so soon. Number 6. Not recasting Kevin Spacey, House of Cards. The production of House of Cards' 6th and final season faced a massive challenge following the firing of Kevin Spacey after sexual misconduct allegations were leveled against him. Netflix ultimately decided to kill off Spacey's protagonist, Frank Underwood, and shift the perspective towards his wife, Claire, for the final batch of episodes. But as great as Robin Wright was in the role, the creative just wasn't there, and the final season was massively harmed by the fact that Frank's death clearly wasn't part of the original plan. It was a huge creative pivot, and not one the show handled gracefully at all. Yet there was perhaps a more elegant solution hiding in plain sight: just recasting Frank. House of Cards' biggest narrative gimmick is that Frank regularly breaks the fourth wall to address the audience, so why not simply replace Spacey and have the new actor tell the audience to deal with it? It certainly would have been a bold move in of itself, but with an A-lister like Bryan Cranston or James Spader filling Spacey's shoes, it just might have worked. In the very least, it would have made for a more coherent final season than the abject mess we ended up with. Number 5. The second series finale disappoints fans again: Dexter: New Blood. Dexter's original series finale remains one of the most disappointing of all time. Dexter ends up faking his own death and working as a lumberjack under a fake name in Oregon. Okay. When Showtime announced that a sequel series was in development and that it was committed to giving fans a superior second ending to Dexter's story, fans were cautiously optimistic. After all, it couldn't be any worse, right? And while Dexter: New Blood certainly didn't plumb the awful depths of the original series finale, its ending nevertheless rubbed a lot of fans up the wrong way. Even beyond the fact that Dexter died at the end, a divisive choice if there ever was one, many fans felt the final episode was a rushed, convoluted mess which simply tried to do too much inside of a single hour. Basically, New Blood had returned to the roughshod quality of writing that sunk the original show in its final season. New Blood certainly had more positives than the original ending, but given how much Showtime and showrunner Clyde Phillips hyped it up as delivering a proper ending worthy of the show's better, earlier seasons, it ultimately felt a bit of a damp squib. Number 4. The BTK killer, Mindhunter. Netflix Mindhunter is one of the greatest TV series of the last decade, a stunningly moody crime thriller overseen by David Fincher, focused on the FBI's behavioral science unit studying several killers in the 1970s and early 1980s. Throughout both seasons, the main story periodically cuts away to show brief vignettes of an unnamed ADT serviceman who is initially implied to be Dennis Rader, aka the BTK killer, before his identity is formally confirmed in Season 2. These segments have virtually no interaction with Mindhunter's main story, though by the end of Season 2, the show seemed to be setting up a third season which would focus on his crimes more explicitly. Yet because Mindhunter was ultimately cancelled after 2 seasons, we never got to see the long game play out with BTK. Given that Rader wasn't caught until 2005, decades after the show is set, it would have been interesting to see how this arc unfolded in Season 3. Would he have remained an enigma to the FBI, or would the show have jumped forward in time to show his capture? Either way, the fact we didn't get to see whatever the show had planned with BTK is an all-time shame. Number 3. Not killing Brody in Season 1, Homeland. Homeland's first season was absolutely terrific, but the creatives ultimately chickened out on a pivotal moment which could have cemented the show as one of the all-time greats. In the Season 1 finale, Marine-turned-terrorist Nicholas Brody makes the decision to carry out a suicide bombing at a State Department policy summit, with the intent of killing Vice President Walden and announcing a US drone strike in Pakistan. It's a deliriously tense sequence as Brody readies himself to detonate the vest, but he's eventually stopped in his tracks by a phone call from his daughter, Dana, who unknowingly persuades him not to blow himself up. Killing Brody so early in the show would have given Homeland's first season one hell of an unforgettable ending, akin to Ned Stark's unexpected demise in Game of Thrones' first season. Instead, Brody was given a stay of execution, and it became increasingly clear over the seasons that followed that those in charge just didn't know what to do with him, leading to his belated demise at the end of Season 3, long after many had stopped caring. Number 2. The post-apocalyptic 4th season we never got, Ash vs. Evil Dead. As belated TV sequels to hit movies go, Ash vs. Evil Dead must surely be one of the greatest ever. A show that both pays homage to Sam Raimi's legendary horror comedy trilogy while feeling like a legit sequel in its own right. The show was sadly cancelled after 3 seasons due to dwindling ratings, ending on a tantalizing cliffhanger where Ash wakes up in a post-apocalyptic future, and is gifted a souped-up version of the Oldsmobile by his robot companion Lex. It was one hell of an insane way to end the season, and had Starz not cancelled Ash vs. Evil Dead barely a week before this episode aired, it would have left fans hugely hyped for Season 4. According to Bloody Disgusting, the 4th season was set to have a vibe similar to both Mad Max and Fallout, the incredible potential which speaks for itself. Sadly, with the series cancellation and Campbell's subsequent retirement from the role of Ash, it'll forever be one of TV's greatest what-ifs. Number 1. The 3-day time skip, Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks' controversial 2nd season eventually revealed that Laura Palmer's killer was her own father, Leland, albeit while possessed by the interdimensional entity Bob. Shortly after Leland is arrested midway through the season, Bob leaves his body and he dies, only for the next episode to abruptly take place 3 days later at his funeral. Yet David Lynch missed a ripe opportunity by glossing over those 3 days. An entire episode centered around the town reacting to Leland's capture and death could have been absolutely fascinating. Given that Laura's murder captivated the local community, it's bizarre how tossed off and rushed over its resolution feels. In reality, it would have sent shockwaves through the town and surely resulted in some compelling character drama. This misstep could perhaps be attributed to the fact that Lynch wasn't originally planning to reveal the identity of Laura's killer at all, but was ultimately pressured to do so by the network ABC. And so, it's little surprise that so much of Twin Peaks' 2nd season is a pure mess. And there we have it, folks, our list of the 10 biggest missed opportunities in TV history. And as always, please do let us know down in the comments of your biggest missed opportunities in TV history. Can we talk about that ending to Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles? Oh, what a cliffhanger. John Connor in the future? Discuss. And while you're there, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. If you want to follow me on socials, I am at Strawn87 on Twitter and on Instagram. Come and say hello to me on there. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, take care.